Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Tennova Healthcare. No one in East Tennessee offers more medical services than Tennova. From their Cancer Center to their Heart Institute, from their Men's Health Center of Excellence to their Labor and Delivery Center, Stroke Center, Robotic Surgery Center, allergy treatment. Just you name it, Tennova can help you and your family get through it. Tennova Healthcare, and you can learn more about them, Tennova.com. I'm a firm believer in them, so is my family. Tennova.com. All right, want to welcome in the defensive portion of our All of All show here today. We have Daniel Hood, of course, defensive lineman for the Volunteers. What were your years over there, 11, 12, and 13?
Or 10, 11, 12? Was actually first year.
Oh, 9, 10, 11. Okay, yep. Sorry about that. That's right, because you were recruited by Kiffin and
That's
the whole
right.
thing. Okay. And right here we have Chris.
Last year.
And then we got Chris Wampler. And Chris, you were there 79 through 82?
You got it, John.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And down there, J.J. Surlis, another defensive lineman. And you were in there with Mike Stoll, unfortunately for you, 88 through 92, correct?
Yes, sir. Correct.
All right. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Same kind of question we talked about with those guys. All three of you were here back in August on the old set before the season, and we talked about expectations for the team, where the program was headed. Do you feel that the 2014 regular season met the expectations or slightly outdid them, slightly underachieved them? What are your thoughts on the 2014 season in this Tennessee team?
I thought they overachieved. Just when you look at everything they went through, ending the season with your third string quarterback, all your receivers that went down, you look at the offensive line as a makeshift offensive line, you got one person that really played tackle their whole life, and he's actually a walk-on. So you got really no SEC caliber offensive lineman that really came on. You had a JUCO guy that really failed out and off his expectations, and then you had freshman kickers come on that made big impacts. Yep. Freshmen in the return game. I think they overachieved, and it's just something that we'll be able to build on.
We're going to talk about the numbers in this next segment. We got some stuff on our whiteboard we're going to discuss, but going back and looking for statistical advantages inside the numbers, you realize what you said is true. You look at the numbers for this Tennessee team, it's like, how did they get to 6 wins? Because this isn't an advantage. This wasn't great. This wasn't great. It was one of those things where the sum was greater than the individual parts. Your thoughts on the 2014 season and the direction of the program?
I agree with Daniel. I really think they overachieved. But what was so amazing about it, there's some what ifs in there. What if you don't lay an egg at Florida? Yeah. What if the Georgia outcome, you don't fumble late in the end zone, show your youth? Those are two games that you really didn't expect to be in with the caliber of players that you had. Not saying they're not bad players, I'm just saying they're young. And the youth that you had on your team, it was amazing to watch them perform every time. And the difference that we saw from years past, and I think JJ, y'all would agree, I think the defensive line and some of their, and we're defensive linemen, and some of their play elevated with even with some young guys. And if you were a Twitter account with Tennessee, it was hashtag and he's a freshman. Because that was just what it was, and I thought that they did overachieve.
And I was shocked and impressed with the young guys, because you're looking at Barnett, the freshman, O'Brien, what is he, a sophomore? Those guys made plays and put themselves in situations that we didn't see the last few years, or periodically, just they didn't get there. And so I was impressed with the youth, those guys playing and getting the job done.
Yeah, I think you could see, it's one thing to have a top 5 recruiting class, top 10 recruiting class, looks good on paper, but you got to throw them all in there in action, and to have as many guys step up as you did this year, that's a huge plus, but especially on that defense. You had youth on the offense as well, and it didn't, some of those offensive linemen, they were in a tough situation. The defense was able to kind of pin its ears back at times and just play ball. And I think it showed the improvement in just athletic ability on this year's team than what you've seen over the last 3 or 4 years.
And they took the major hit with A.J. Johnson, who had to be a leader for them. He had to be an inspiration for them on the defensive huddle. He had been there, he had done that, and those young guys needed that leadership. And I think some of the other guys alluded to it. You didn't see him play as well without him in there.
Yeah. There were a lot of questions when John Jancic was brought in. There were a lot of people that pointed back and said, well, he didn't make it at Georgia. Of course, he wasn't the defensive coordinator at Georgia. You could make a really good case that he was he and Steve Stripling were your two best defensive coaches, two best coaches on the staff this year. Thoughts on the staff overall and your feelings about them and the direction they have things headed?
I think guys. I mean, I'm impressed with the staff. The fact is seeing the guys improve. I mean, from the first game, I can remember sitting there and saying, all right, this guy spun out of something late and made a play, but it consistently happened every game. I think they're teaching them well.
Daniel, your thoughts on these guys? Because you know these
Yeah.
coaches. You run them for
I
years.
love them. And I think the one coach we're not giving too much credit to is Willie Martinez and the job that the corners and safeties have done. You think about it, this is the first year, and probably since EB's been here, that we've been able to cover guys man on man and give the defensive line time to get to the quarterback, to give Barnett a chance to set a sack record. And just hats off to Coach Martinez and what he's done with those guys and recruiting the right guys, getting them in.
Good point. All right, guys, we'll have you guys back in for another segment a little bit later in the show. When we come back, we're going to take a look kind of inside the numbers, look at some advantages Tennessee might have, some advantages Iowa might have, a little thumbnail preview of the Tax Slayer Bowl. Come back on the Sports Source.
Quality, quick. Trust Fast Frame.